Hey, how goes it? Ken Bozak here to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today I'm with Kenneth Ameduri from crushthestreet.com. Kenneth, thank you so much for joining me. If you could please introduce yourself to the audience, let them know who you are, a little bit about how you got into Bitcoin, and how that led you to where you're at and what you do now in the industry.
Well, hey, brother, thanks for having me on. Hello, everyone. I got into Bitcoin. Well, I should go back. I was always a student of Austrian economics. I graduated high school in 2006, and I was all excited about jumping into the whole housing market bubble and just, keeping this whole thing going and investing. And I never wanted to go get a job. And it was so exciting to me, but I literally graduated into like the 2008 financial mess, and real estate had peaked when I had graduated in my senior year. And I went to college, and I just started following the economy. I started following guys like Peter Schiff and just reading books on the debt crisis, gold, sound money, why stocks are crashing. And, I knew something was wrong with the system. So I started writing in 2011 at Crush the Street and just talking about reasons where I feel the economy is overvalued, and talking about the lies in the system and all the propaganda that we get from just the mainstream and your typical government talking heads, the Federal Reserve. And you know what? I was talking about gold for quite a while. And then, of course, how could you not run into Bitcoin? I actually had this experience in 2012. My first experience with Bitcoin, I got flown around on a Cirrus airplane, and the guy next to me actually offered to pay the pilot for gas, and he took Bitcoin. And at the time, Bitcoin was $1.
Whoa.
And of course, he paid him like 500 Bitcoins at the time.
Oh.
And of course, that is enough to buy multiple
Planes, yeah.
$500,000 aircrafts now.
Wow.
For just the fuel it was at the time to enjoy an afternoon out flying around Southern California. So that was really interesting. Obviously, we went through the 2013 whole speculation phase. I really started to get into Bitcoin 2015, 2016, and I got in at a good time. I really dived in earlier this year, and now I'm involved with Hive blockchain technologies. I have a significant position in that company, and I just think blockchain is the future, man. It really is the future, and I'm a little bit biased to Bitcoin and in its current form.
I like how you said it earlier, though. You're like, and I really didn't want to get a job. I was like, I'm with you, man. That's awesome, dude. You mentioned Hive, though.
Dude, I'm unemployable.
That's how I feel. I'm so with you, man. I'm so unprofessional. Who would hire me?
People are worried about losing their job. I'm worried about ever having to go get one.
Yo, that's so enlightening, dude. Whoa, that's like next level shit, dude. You mentioned Hive. I really do want to get more info on that, because that's one of the most outperforming stocks ever, like hands down ever. I think it was it beat Bitcoin in by 740% or something. Could you go into what Hive is and how exactly it has to deal with blockchain technology or Bitcoin?
Well, it's a partnership with Genesis, the mining company, and Genesis owns 30% of Hive, and it's an opportunity for them to get into the equities market. And really, Genesis is not hoarding any of their coins, any of their what they're mining. So this is an opportunity for Genesis to have a vehicle where they hoard cryptocurrencies, and they're partnering with Fiore, a great company, business people. And they're going to be mining, and they got a farm in Iceland, and they just closed on another one in Sweden. And sure, the company is trading maybe a little bit ahead of itself now, but this is the first mover in cryptocurrency to go into the stock world, into the equities world. And I'll tell you this, Amazon has always looked expensive. Tesla has always looked expensive. Google has always looked expensive. But I tend to believe that, with the money that the company is raising, the entrepreneurs that are behind it, and just blockchain in general, Hive is going to benefit first mover advantage. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how it progresses, because on paper you might go, hey, maybe trading a little bit of ahead of itself, but we'll see. We'll see what happens as the company continues to close on deals and build out blockchain services. And I'm banking on Genesis. I'm banking on the people in Fiore, and just the Hive group in general. It's a really exciting time, and I've been fortunate to be partnered with these guys.
Yeah, Genesis, they're really big in mining, and they have such a niche with the power consumption that they use very little of, because they have the natural coolant of the ground. So that's kind of an advantage on their end. They're going to do very well in mining. I definitely expect them to keep growing. I wanted to get your opinion on GBTC and a possible Bitcoin ETF, since we have CME adding Bitcoin future derivatives and stuff. So if you could, maybe touch on that, let the viewers know a little bit about GBTC and how we may
I'll
end
be honest,
up with
I don't have much of an opinion on GBTC. I just think that in general, I can give you a more general view. Bitcoin is going to benefit from the wall of institutional money that is pent up on the sidelines. And that was something that we're seeing with Hive. That's something that we're going to see with GBTC, and just the hedge funds that are out there. Not even like cryptocurrency hedge funds. We've heard a lot about cryptocurrency hedge funds, but think about a general hedge fund that trades a bunch of other assets that needs something non-correlated. When the market turns and they don't want to lose as bad as just the general stock market, it might be nice to have some cryptocurrencies that are non-correlated to the general stock market. And once this starts happening, I think cryptocurrencies in general are going to benefit, but I think the top ones are going to be where people store their wealth, or these hedge fund managers store the majority of their wealth. And maybe it's 70% Bitcoin, 30% Ethereum or something. And what would that do? In such a small market cap space, what would that do to the price? This is really huge. I know a lot of people are worried about manipulation, the possible manipulation entering the whole Bitcoin space, because precious metals are manipulated in the market. But I just got off the call with Andy Hoffman, and he's like, hey, the blockchain is going to keep these people honest. Mm-hmm. You really cannot. Yeah. And so, I lean on smart people, and I listen to a lot of what these guys are saying. And look, I think there's a lot of room to run, especially in Bitcoin, as the price continues to make it viable. It's kind of interesting. People are more excited about $6,500 Bitcoin than they were $500 Bitcoin, but the price legitimized it. And once we passed that $100 billion market cap, this was like a moment for the institutional money to go, okay, now we can enter it. So it's not this, oh, we need to go back because it needs to have a huge correction or something. It might, but the demand just continues to ramp up. And I think we're going to continue to see that, especially as the big money starts to enter in. And I don't think we've seen much of that yet.
No, not even a little bit. And speaking of traditional institutions, we have CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, adding Bitcoin, and things like Fidelity saying they're adding Bitcoin. What do you think that means for Bitcoin? Is it officially mainstream, or are we still in early adoption? Because a lot of people keep asking me, oh, is it too late? Did I miss the boat? Are we already on the moon?
I think we've yet to really enter the space. We're still only at $100 billion market cap for just Bitcoin alone. And all of these assets that are traded heavily are, they're in the trillions. Gold is an $8 trillion investment, $8 trillion valuation. If you multiply the price by the amount of ounces that are out there, we're still so early in this space. And I feel like people are continuing to solidify their belief that Bitcoin is a real store of value. And that's constantly what Bitcoin is dealing with, is how much can we trust it? How much can we put our faith in where Bitcoin is going to go? And, you know, I give guys credit who really had that strong belief years ago when there wasn't all this infrastructure built out. Now we have the CME putting its stamp of approval on it. So, you know, it's easier for us to go, oh, it's going to be a big thing after they do that. But I mean, people had the vision of this years ago. And so I still think we're really early in this whole thing. And look, I think Bitcoin is at least going to 50,000. Look, I mean, that's not that far away. I think at current, 16.5 million Bitcoins out there, it's still under $1 trillion market cap.
And how many get lost every day? You know what I mean?
It's like 8 something.
There's so many less Bitcoin in circulation than we really think, which makes it way more scarce in nature than people are actually aware of, especially since Satoshi's never moved. That's quite a bit. It's quite a bit of Bitcoin, and you know, for all we know, unfortunately, may never move. Could possibly be deceased or lost the private keys. Maybe that's why Satoshi's never come forward. He lost his keys.
We haven't really even entered the whole transaction space yet. I mean, we're still only seeing small amounts of transactions take place in cryptocurrencies, and I know Vitalik Buterin of Ethereum, he's talking about, you know, blockchain usurping Visa, the ability to usurp Visa in what, 2 years? This is huge. This is such a game changer. There's so many things that have yet to be disrupted yet that need to go in and get priced into where these currencies are today. It's still so early in the game.
We have a question from the live chat, and a pretty good one at that. What do you think about Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash, BTC versus BCH? Which, in your opinion, because that's all we can do at this point, which, in your opinion, is the true Bitcoin, and why? And why would the other one be considered an altcoin?
You know what? I actually tend to think that Bcash, I know a lot of people are calling it that, Bitcoin Cash, will ultimately go away. Now, it was easier for me to say that when it was $300 and everyone was disregarding it, right? But as soon as it shot up to $2,700 and Bitcoin was kind of coming down, that correction, you kind of had a gut check moment on, okay, what is going to happen with Bitcoin Cash? And, you know, I listen to the developers out there. I listen to the people who are concerned about it. And they're worried. They're saying, hey, 8 megabyte blocks, you know, we don't know the full extent of the security risks that are involved with it. And, you know, this Bitcoin Cash is really supported and backed by 2 guys, you know, Roger Ver and Jihan Wu.
That's it.
Yeah. So, I mean, is it really backed by fundamentals? And was this whole thing a planned pump and dump, really timing that Bitcoin top there and then pushing Bitcoin Cash up? And you know what? Despite whether or not it's a fundamentally flawed cryptocurrency, the market is going to do what the market's going to do. And I think they gained a lot of credibility, despite whatever I believe, with the general market. Like Bitcoin Cash at $1,300 only a couple months into its existence is a serious message to, hey, we're a viable player. We've only been around for a couple months and we're number 3 on CoinMarketCap.
Yeah.
I think that's telling the market a lot of things. So do I think it's fundamentally where people should be? No, but the market doesn't always trade on fundamentals. Gold should be much higher. The stock market is overvalued.
Way
Amazon shouldn't be trading at $1,000, you know, but 300 times its earnings with, you know, a handful of profitable quarters. And so that's kind of where I stand with it. If you have both Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, I would hold on to both of them if I was you.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't know exactly. I think Bitcoin's going to stick around, and I think it will prove itself to be the true Bitcoin. That's what I feel. But I'm not going to say that with 100% certainty because the market is going to do what the market's going to do.
Yeah, somebody commented that that night Bcash pumped, Roger Ver publicly sold 25,000 Bitcoin that night. So that may have been that artificial pump you were talking about. And, you know, these guys have, you know, for all I know, the dude's a billionaire, multi-billionaire, and has multi-billionaire friends who can, like you said, create their own cryptocurrency and do a pump and dump. And that's what I think Bcash is. It's a coin some guy created to pump and dump. And as far as I'm concerned, that whole Segwit 2x non-event was probably like a whole, you know, created fake news hysteria just to make Bcash a little more appealing to traders. So I'm with you. I think it was just manipulation.
Well, I think about how many times this year they're like diluting themselves. In Bitcoin Unlimited and then Bitcoin Cash. And
well, what would you do if you had a company that made hardware that could only, you know, mine a specific type of Bitcoin because you're an ASIC mining company? What would you do? You would lobby against the thing that would put you out of business.
You know what? People are motivated by their own personal greed, and you know, and that I totally see why Bitcoin should be the true Bitcoin, not from like a purist, altruistic perspective. I mean, there's so many advancements going on with Bitcoin. It's the truest decentralized cryptocurrency that we have. I mean, so many of these other cryptocurrencies shouldn't even be called cryptocurrencies. Currencies, you know, reflect a real monetary asset, and here we have everything being considered a cryptocurrency.
Ripple.
But the fact is, you know, you have something like the US dollar, which is just backed by nothing and can be printed out into existence. But, you know, does that mean that, you know, it's going to inflate tomorrow, or you shouldn't hold any US dollars? Because the market is going to do what the market's going to do. And that's why you need to be smart and diversified. You can't just bet the farm on what something should do. I mean, from that altruistic, you know, that morally right thing, and I'm not saying I disagree with it, but, you know, from what I know about markets, they can be irrational longer than an investor can stay solvent. And it can do it. It can go higher than anyone can ever think, and it can go lower and stay down longer than anyone can ever think. So that's why you just need to be smart with your investments.
Speaking of smart investments, what do you think is possibly going to go down with the SEC, Security Exchange Commissions, and the ICOs and all that? Where do you see this going in the U.S.? Because the rest of the world, it really doesn't pertain to. Where do you think it will go in the U.S. when we're trying to invest in ICOs?
You know what? This is such a gray area, and this was one of the hottest topics that people were talking about at the Austin Bitcoin conference. It's funny about all these libertarian, anarchist type people, and the thing that they were most concerned about are taxes and regulations and what's going on in this space. And that's one of the things that Bitcoin has, is that there's no central point of attack, and if the governments try to regulate it too much, you know, people will back away. They just won't comply with the government. I'm not saying they're going to back away in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin will sidestep those regulations. And we've seen that happen in China, where they shut down the exchanges and Bitcoin just shoots through the roof. What happened, you know, in January this year, Bitcoin was 1/10 of the price, and, you know, it just took off after that type of news. And so as far as the ICOs go, the governments are going to see it as a security. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think that creates a central point of attack for any of these ICOs. I don't know if the government is just going to completely come in and just crush these businesses and crush all the funds that have been invested in these ICOs. But I know they're not going to want it to get out of control. And the thing that the U.S. has going for it is that the majority of capital resides within the U.S. borders. So if a company wants to have access to U.S. investors, they're going to have to comply with the SEC rules until the U.S. implodes on itself and people just say, screw
Yes.
it, right? You know, we don't need you anymore.
100%.
So yeah, that's kind of what I feel when it comes to those things, which is why I would be hesitant in putting too much money into some cryptocurrency hedge fund that is unregulated. People don't even know how to tax these cryptocurrencies. Everyone thought that it would be like a 1031. If you enter Bitcoin at $1,000 and it goes to 3,000, and then you bought Ethereum at 250 and it moved to 300, you know, I always thought it'd be like a kind transfer of assets, and you would just kind of roll those gains and defer them for your taxes. But according to some of the people I've listened to, the government wants you to realize that US dollar gain going from Bitcoin into Ethereum, and then have a new cost basis.
No.
And you think about that, what a nightmare would that be for someone who is a trader or anybody? Like, this is a whole can of worms that these regulators have no idea how to handle, or people don't know how to handle. And it's going to be that balance between enforcement and compliance. And I'll say this, I think the reason why governments are going to want to treat it like that, you know, have you realize your gain, if you move it, is because they don't want you getting lost in your gains. Like, they want you to keep track of it. And so if you kind of slush it around too much, you'll lose track, and you won't report your cryptocurrency gains. So I think they're going to attempt to control it like that. But again, this is such gray areas, and that's why you have to, you know, dip your toes in the water when you're getting involved with some of these things, because yes, the governments are going to see this as a security, because it's not like a company is selling salsa and it's a product. No, the company is selling a token, which then goes on Poloniex and gets pumped up. So now you're dealing with, you know, money management, and that has every description of a security. And having said that, it's kind of why it lends itself to Bitcoin being that decentralized, out of the hands of control when it comes to these government officials.
Now, they do look at things a little differently when it comes to cryptocurrencies and tokens that are utilities, right? So, like, if you do have a utility behind the token, it's a little different than if you're trying to be a currency, right? I feel like I heard about that.
I could tell you what I heard.
Yeah, please, because that's all I do is hear random things.
and you're going to hear another random thing here. And that basically goes back to that example, is if you invest in some token, yeah, you're buying a utility, maybe data storage or ad space or some sort of, you know, like Chuck E. Cheese. You're buying a token and using it in the machine to have some fun. But the difference between Chuck E. Cheese and some of these other tokens is that token then goes on an exchange and gets traded like a security. Like, it's going to go from 1 cent to 10 cents, and you're going to have 10x your money. So there's a difference between, yeah, it's a utility, but then it's a security because of the way it's traded. And that sounds and smells, and it passes everything in the Howey test for a stock.
So how do you track profits in this market? Is there any app or website or program or company that we can go to and be like, look, dude, I made buku bucks in this bull run. I don't know how much money I made. I did a lot of trades. I went from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Litecoin and Bitcoin. Like, how do I even start to track my profits? Because, like, right now, I'm just rolling in it. I don't know what to do. I'm just waiting for the IRS to kick in my door. Help a brother out.
Well, you know what? I actually don't have an answer for you on how to track profits, but I think you have some sort of idea if you wanted to really sit back and say, okay, this is when I started to invest, and this is what I have. And as long as you know all your wallets and have access to them, you're good. But I would tell you, here's where I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth. I think Bitcoin has the potential to go to 50,000 and beyond. But if you're up and you put your life savings in Bitcoin at $500, and now you're up over 10x of your money, and you're like 100% cryptocurrencies, you might consider taking some money off the table and solidifying those gains, because any movement in Bitcoin at this current time, or any of the cryptocurrencies, is a huge impact on your net worth. But maybe you're a gambler and you just want to ride it out, and you know what? Those who've ridden it out from 3,000 to 6,000 are glad they did, right? But yeah, I would just say that, you know, for someone who is up big, and I'm talking a material dollar amount, some number where you can actually do something with it, like buy a house and, you know, pay off your mortgage. I mean, how cool would it be to take some money off the table and say, hey, this is what I did with my Bitcoin gains? And you can look at it and say, you know, I changed my life with these gains, despite what Bitcoin does from here and the next few years. You can always have an allocation of your portfolio in cryptocurrencies. Maybe you want that 10%, maybe you want it 15%, or maybe you're more conservative 5%. That's fine. But there's a lot of people sitting out there on 100% cryptocurrencies, and they're sitting on huge gains. And I would consider rebalancing that portfolio and doing something. Even if you were going to buy an overvalued house in the US, you know, you made it all with the house's money, and you can pay that off and not have a mortgage for the rest of your life. That's pretty significant. And so that's my balance on that. You know, have exposure to cryptocurrencies, but you may not want to be 100% in them if you don't want the volatility of your entire net worth fluctuating with the market.
I'm all in on crypto. I don't even own stocks. I have like 1 coin of silver. I don't even have USD, dude. Like when Bitcoin went down a little bit, I was like, well, I'm happy I sold some for on my BitPay card so I can eat this week. But like, I'm so far up from when I got in. I mean, Bitcoin would have to go down to like 700. Yeah, exactly. It'd have to go down to like $700 for me to be like, crap, I lost money now.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and that's where a lot of people are. And because it's all the house's money, you're not you didn't work 35 years and are hinging your entire retirement account on this money, right? You know, you're just kind of, you put a big investment in it and you're all in. And
I put a little investment in it and now it's big. It's awesome.
There you go. Well, and you know, the advice is different depending on who you are. I wouldn't tell my dad, who's you know, retiring at 60, you know, something years old, and has, you know, worked all these years and invested all these years to have what he has, to go and into cryptocurrencies and to see that fluctuation. Now, move some money into it, but it's different than, you know, being 25 years old and saying, hey, I'm going to put whatever 10, 20 grand into something and see what happens, right?
So you would say that Bitcoin is still, because it is, in my opinion, one of the most riskiest things you can invest in. That's what I tell people. Like, I mean, yeah, Bitcoin is already, like, when people ask me, like, oh, is this a good time to invest in Bitcoin? I'm like, well, it's a good time to have been invested in Bitcoin. I mean, I don't know the fucking future. If I did, I'd be selling organs on the black market to buy Bitcoin. And you know, you were talking about, you know, selling some Bitcoin, buying a house, but I wanted to get your opinion on platforms like Salt, like where I could, you know, get money for lending my Bitcoin, buy the Bitcoin back at a, you know, agreed upon interest rate, trying to beat the Bitcoin volatility to buy my Bitcoin back at a cheaper price than buying it back from the market just to buy a house. Like, so like some of those people I talk to are people that are in real estate, and I just had Ubiquity on, and they're putting real estate and stuff on the blockchain, you know, so it really seems like, you know, blockchain, Bitcoin, real estate, it's all going to be like one of the first things I think will bring blockchain technology to a mainstream adoption. What do you think about Salt platform and lending out your Bitcoin to do stuff like that?
Yeah, you know, I'm not too familiar with that. I can just tell you in general, I'm not comfortable with lending my Bitcoin out. I just don't like that idea. I had somebody ask me for 20 grand the other day. He's like, can you let me borrow 20 grand in Bitcoin? I'm like, no, I'm not letting you borrow my Bitcoin. And I think it's just because it's not a fully understood space. I don't trust a lot of these new platforms yet. I would rather go through the traditional means of lending some money and having someone's title on their house and a lien on their house and going that way. I don't all these new avenues are, I'm okay with dipping my toe in the waters of some of these things. That's fine. But do I have like this long-term hardcore belief in some of these new platforms out there? No, especially because of the SEC and the rules and regulations, and who knows what they're going to do when they see all this going on.
That is a good point, actually. I didn't think of putting the SEC in there. See, I just try to stay like away from that thought, because like eventually they'll be gone. Probably before they even become like a real nuisance. Like all these regulations, IRS, Bitcoin's going to make all this impractical. Like, I don't want to segue too far, but I feel like Twitter could replace most politicians. I can literally tweet the president, and there's a good fucking chance he'll tweet me back. I don't need to go to my congressman or mayor or governor to get my voice to the president. I can email him. So there's a lot of jobs that the internet's really putting out of play. I wanted to talk a little bit, I know we're coming up close on time here, a little bit about what you thought about that Texas Bitcoin conference, because I gave my 2 cents. I don't know if you saw that video, but to me, it really didn't feel like a true Bitcoin conference. There was no Bitcoin booth. They didn't accept Bitcoin for anything, the shirts, the food. There was no Bitcoin vibe. It was just a bunch of altcoins. So what was your take from that Bitcoin conference?
Well, after you prompted me there with that negative prompt, let me just say that that was one of the only conferences I've attended, and it really opened my mind to a lot of these altcoins. And I started to really see a lot of these altcoins not as money,
right,
but as platforms
yes.
to enter the space and the technology. These like tech stocks in so many ways.
100%. And
if you can get behind and really like think about some of these, like Factum, that's like data storage and decentralized platform for data storage. And it might be because the founder of Factum is the chairman and the founder of the Texas Bitcoin Conference, that the conference wasn't largely about Bitcoin.
It wasn't largely about Factum. Actually, not even a little bit. So I'll give them that too.
Yeah, exactly. It was a really good balance of things. I know Trace Mayer was supposed to speak, and there was a huge a misunderstanding of why he wasn't there. Like literally, everyone was like, "Why isn't Trace Mayer here?" Like the people, the founders, and the Paul Snow, the chairman of the conference, ended up having to do a last-minute canned speech. And so I know if Trace was there, it would have been a hardcore Bitcoin talk. And so I think they made their attempt. Jeff Berwick was there. I mean, he's just all about Bitcoin.
Yeah, Jeff's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a good conference. I was laughing when you had pointed out the fact that there was no booth there that accepted Bitcoin. That
was really weird, man.
Why not?
They were sponsored by Bitcoin.com. They had it everywhere, but like there was no booth to get. Like everybody was asking other cryptocurrency booths about Bitcoin. And as I was walking around the conference, I would hear Dash talking about Bitcoin, Nexus explaining Bitcoin. There was Decred, there was Zencash. There was a couple cryptocurrency or altcoins that were there, but like they had to do the job of explaining Bitcoin, Bitcoin's blockchain, and then they had to explain their own thing after that. So I kind of felt bad for them. Like it's like, you can't talk about your own thing. You have to talk about this thing and then compare it. And you can't really compare anything to Bitcoin. So I just was like, they should have had a Bitcoin booth where people could have just gotten a line, got their questions, got a paper wallet, buy Bitcoin, sell Bitcoin. I don't know. They could have done more for Bitcoin, but the conference was great. It was definitely great. I just didn't feel like it was a Bitcoin conference. That's all. Blockchain, you could have called it a blockchain conference for sure.
Well, I mean, obviously Bitcoin is the most marketable, so I understand that. But yeah, you know, I wonder if it just has to do with the hardcore Bitcoin people just not being very interested in altcoins. I don't know. And I think it's a lot of the altcoin people who love Bitcoin, but are like, hey, you know, let's do something with it. And that's why they were all there at that conference. I'm surprised actually Jimmy Song wasn't there, because Jimmy Song is like, you know, 10 minutes from where that
a lot of people brought that up too.
Yeah, exactly. So I would have loved to have seen him and just talk to some of the other big players in Bitcoin as well. But no, you know, it was a good conference. I just liked the vibe that was there, and it was really interesting to get a pulse for what is going on. I know a ton of people out there that are trying to do the hedge funds, the cryptocurrency hedge funds, and everyone was biting at the bullet to figure out how we're going to do this. And I mean, this is really where this is going, but it's so great. And I'll be interested to see who kind of rises to the top on these cryptocurrency hedge funds and what the governments have to say about it.
Yeah, I'm in this for the long haul, so I just got to sit back, relax, and wait for everything to work itself out. I've been trying to tell people, you know, if you're not into creating content about crypto or Bitcoin and you have some, maybe for the next couple days, stop looking at the market, stop looking at the chart, stop looking at the news, don't watch my YouTube channel, just don't care for a few days, let everything settle down, and then come back. But unfortunately for us, we create content, so it's like we have to be hit with all this information, and you know, it can sometimes get emotional. So I try to tell people, if you're in this for the long haul today and tomorrow bad press comes out, stop. Just stop. You already made a decision to go long. Tomorrow shouldn't have already affected that. I just wanted to see what, you know, you want to wrap this up and give everybody a final thought, maybe let them know what they should have taken away from this conversation, and let them know where to find you on the interwebs.
Interwebs. Well, hey guys, thanks for tuning in today. It was and thank you, Ken, for having me on the show. It was an honor. But I would just say, if you're thinking about getting into cryptocurrency, look, you know, trickle in. I don't think $6,500 Bitcoin is too high. And if you want to, you know, balance out a little bit, buy a little bit of Ethereum, buy a little bit of Litecoin. You know, everyone's saying, hey, this is still early in the game, and I tend to agree with that. As far as a lot of the controversy out there, I would agree with you, Ken. You gotta kind of just get into this space and not look too hard at it, because you're gonna upset your stomach. I can tell you, when Bcash went to 2,700 and Bitcoin was crashing, that was a gut check moment, even for myself. I'm like, okay, I wonder if this whole flippening thing is a reality. So, but at the same time, I would just say, hey, don't invest more than you're willing to lose. And I'll talk out of the other side of my mouth. I think Bitcoin is going to 50,000 and, you know, 500,000. So.
Or we get to see John McAfee eat his dick on live TV. So I'm kind of like, I want it to be like $1 off for like a whole year. And then the day he does that, it just takes off to $1 million. Like I'm on two sides of that. Thank you so much, Kenneth, from crushthestreet.com. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on my show. It was a pleasure being on your show and an honor meeting you at the Texas Bitcoin Conference. I look forward to multiple events. I'll be going to more conferences, traveling, so hopefully we run into each other more. And we can probably do something live next time we do that. That would be awesome.
Let's do it, brother.
All right, guys, don't forget to check out the info box below. You can check out crushthestreet.com. I got their Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. All the links are in the description box. Again, thank you, Kenneth. Everybody have a day.